Hello everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and I'm excited for a special video today. We're going to be getting in the car and going to a somewhat local coin dealership, and I got in touch with the owner, and he said he has some extremely rare and highly valuable exonumia in his possession. We're going to be focusing on a gold metal that is worth over $10,000 on the gold value alone and has some extreme historical significance. That's what I really am interested in. We'll also be tying it into the general metals and exonumia, more with a focus on the metals, but how you could collect them. Is it a good fit for you? What are some of the pros and cons? But first, we're really going to focus on the history and what went into this really special piece of American engineering history. Actually, it's going to be the Thomas Edison medal, but I'll meet you over in the main part of the video. And now I'm on the drive over, super nice, just wanted to show you, nothing else, but now we're going to head into Goldenberry Coin. So I arrived at the shop, and in my hands is this amazing 5-figure in value Electrical Engineers Award medal. So we'll be focused on this for probably like 2 or 3 minutes. I do also want to thank the owner though, because they are going to allow us to use these in the video, which are some Horatio Nelson Battle of Trafalgar, which is a major naval battle that established England as one of the primary navies, few centuries ago, in the video as well. But let's focus on this. So first, we'll look at the label. 1905 dated gold medal, 69 millimeters across, or 187 grams. That's over 6 ounces of gold, which today is like a $10,800 or so. Now, that could change in the future, but I'll come back to that. The more main focus, it's the Electrical Engineers Award. So this medal has been presented to Nikola Tesla, George Westinghouse, and a few others that we'll talk more about. But I do want to say a brief aside. Unk details, mount removed. If you have exonumia, it's really tempting to like put this in a presentation case and then put a mount on it or something like that. It's going to damage the piece of history, and I would not recommend that you do it. Certainly, it's not great for the value. It's not as damaging as doing it to like a Mint State Morgan dollar or something like that from a value perspective, but I'd recommend that you not do it. And this specific one, you can see right here, John W. Lieb, 1923. This was got to the owner by way of the person who originally owned it. Their ancestors now have it here. But this is on sale online for about $19,000. It has not sold yet, so that's a nice premium to the gold value. Obviously, it hasn't sold, but I always think it's good to just get a sense for the valuation, and then we'll talk a little bit about the history on this one. So it is the Thomas Edison medal. Right here it says awarded by the American Institute of Electrical Engineers for meritorious achievement in electricity, but that wasn't the original person that was supposed to give this medal away. For Edison's 25th anniversary of his incandescent lamp, which was a major breakthrough, people decided to commemorate that. They had a really nice ceremony to honor him, but they originally said, and I'm a college student, so I would feel it would be super cool if somebody did this for the coins field, but the medal was supposed to be awarded to a college student under 25 years of age who had the best thesis on an original topic concerning theoretical applied electricity and magnetism. So that's not something I know anything about, but it would be about 6,000 words, 20 pages, and the research process, believe me, it was way tougher in the in the beginning of the 1900s, you could say, but it was supposed to honor people and provide them with a little incentive to have some of these great works. Now, after 3 years, nobody had been qualified to give this medal to, so they decided to partner with the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. As we see here, they had endowed this a few years prior, and they were able to give it. The first recipient was Elihu Thomson, who had produced over 700 patents, became the president of MIT, and had worked on electric arc lighting, as well as establishing the Thomson-Houston Electric Company, which would merge with Edison's company to become General Electric. So that was a pretty major first recipient. There would also be people like Westinghouse and Tesla who would be given this award in the future, with some drama about that. We'll talk a little bit more about that though in just a moment. Also though, want to draw your attention to a few other interesting pieces. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research because I hadn't prepared quite as much for these, but right here first we'll focus on the pewter or white metal Horatio Viscount Nelson, KB Duke of Bronte, which I'm not as familiar with what that's referring to, but again, more to follow. But we see right there the naval battle occurring. Beautiful piece of history. Trafalgar, October 21st, 1805. These were presented. The pewter one would have gone to some of the lower level officers, so there can be some serious valuation attached to some of these medals just because they're so historic. And I think, whether you are interested in the battles and you're a history buff, or you really like electrical engineering, it shows that there's collectibles and especially within the exonumia field, that can really sort of cater to your personal interests in a way that the government produced coinage may not. So say you are interested in purchasing a collectible and you have a strong history, personal ties to the electrical engineering field. Maybe buying one of these medals would be perfect for you. Or maybe that one of your somebody you descended from fought in the Battle of Trafalgar. Maybe they passed away there. Or maybe they lost a limb or had a major life event tied to it. Well, then maybe purchasing something like this, an official medal that was produced right in its wake, not as a modern commemorative, but really something at the time that it occurred. That could be a really, really cool way to be involved with collectibles, where the British government may not have been making these special coins for Trafalgar and then handing them to the officers. That's the sort of thing where I think the exonumia does some really, really cool and sort of different aspects to the overall field of numismatics that can be exciting. And it's a little less quantifiable. Like, I think the grades, it doesn't quite matter what this grades, or it doesn't matter if this is, going to be like a AU 58 or Mint State 63. It's more about just the overall eye appeal and what it commemorates, and appreciating that. So like I said, we're going to go to a PowerPoint presentation. So the silver, this was for a little bit higher ranking officers, and these were much more rare, so I'd imagine that this would wildly eclipse the 2000 figure. But another thing to mention is that this is the original case. I spoke with the dealer who's representing these coins, and he said that they were unable to encapsulate the case along with this silver coin, or metal, so they had decided not to grade it, just because having the original case in which something is presented, all the documentation that you can get on your pieces, especially on the exonumia side, because there's often more to it there, it's so important. Don't don't throw away the box to a modern proof set. Same thing, don't throw away the case if you have it that's housed this for now over 200 years as an important artifact in history. So we're going to head on over, like I said, to that PowerPoint presentation at this point to get a little bit more info on this, and a few other ideas for collecting exonumia, along with some other really spectacular pieces that I wanted to highlight. But again, really excited to have these coins in front of me, and now we'll head on over to that presentation. So now for the presentation, I just wanted to start with a list of pros and cons of the metal collecting that I wanted to bring up. Now, there is a difference. Exonumia could be just any numismatic item that isn't coins or paper money. So maybe it's scrip, maybe it's something like a Civil War token or tokens in general, and metals is included in that. But metals are really the only one that's almost guaranteed to not have been designed to be used as currency. So maybe, there's some stamps and they used to encase them, and you could trade them around as coins because people needed change. And if you had a 3-cent stamp, you might spend that, and then that person could end up just mailing something with it later. But in this case, metals are not going to have that sort of designation. In terms of some of the basic pros of metals, there can be some really specific art and commemoration. So it could be, it's easier to get something improved to strike metals as opposed to having the government issue something and get an official commemorative coin. Now, there are also normally relatively lower prices versus coins for a metal in general of the same rarity, and there can be some really nice value upside if you're selling to the right person who really needs a specifically rare metal. There's often some larger, more interesting planchets or designs, or just less hoops that need to get gone through before you have a metal, whereas the process is just so much more congested in terms of the coins. There can be some much more detailed designs or higher reliefs, or there's just more of a wilder frontier of numismatics. However, it can be a little bit less obvious what completing a set means, because there's not like a clear set of, I'm going to do all of the Roosevelt dimes. There can be less liquidity when selling quickly because, it's nice mint state 66 Morgan dollar. Most people are going to know that they can buy that and then sell it immediately for not too much under what they paid if they really need to sell in a pinch, whereas it can be tougher to find the right person to place the metal to. Now, it's much better than some other forms of art, but something to think through. And because of that, it can slip through the cracks if it's sold, especially at auction. Now, it is rarely government produced, so that can lead to less overall interest, and because there are so many little fields within the metals, it can fragment a collector base. And this is maybe not true, but I feel like it could be tougher to ID fakes. I don't know much about metals. You'd really need to get that perspective, and there's probably less informational resources available on metals. Maybe you could be the next major metal dealer, though. Now, a lot of the metals are relatively popular, or a fair amount of them were produced. In this example, I just want to showcase like 3 metals, then we'll focus on on the Trafalgar and the IEEE metal. So the Norse American Centennial, this was the 100th anniversary of a Norwegian ship which arrived in the United States. Now, this was authorized by Congress, but they were on the restoration. A lot of them settled in Minnesota, and I actually like the Vikings, so that's the Minnesota Vikings. This could be a really cool piece for somebody who has ties to Norway, or who's interested in Scandinavian and Viking culture. Maybe they are 25% Norwegian, then it could be a really cool metal to own. There's also something like a copper medal. This 1864 one commemorates George Washington's letter to Hamilton, and it was during the Civil War, and it was something like an anti-war campaign medal. If you read it here, it says, "I hope that liberal allowance will be made for the political opinions of each other. Without these, I do not see how the reins of government are to be managed, or how the union of the states could be much longer preserved." Now, I think that the Civil War was a much different case in terms of just political opinions, but it's a really interesting piece for people who want to commemorate that history. This one sold for $4,800, is still in really nice condition, and is graded by a major grading service. This one is just, if you like the Denver Mint, this is pretty cool. It's stuck around, still in really nice condition, and they struck them just to say, hey, we're opening the mint. We feel like making this metal. So say you're a native of Colorado, this could be a really cool coin or metal to add to just a overall historical exhibit or presentation. Now, in terms of some of the more specifics on the AIEE or IEEE medal, it's still awarded today, and it's accompanied by $10,000. I think that's interesting because the gold value of the coin that we were just looking at is right around $10,000. So it really hasn't changed too much in terms of the actual valuation of what people are receiving. Now, maybe if they're getting the medal and the $10,000 today, which is really cool. But I just thought that was sort of an interesting thing where $10,000 back then would have been a massively higher amount of money. They also get a gold pendant and a certificate today. Back then, they would have gotten a host of other things. One of the largest controversies surrounding this issue was Edison did not congratulate Westinghouse because they were in the midst of a battle over the AC versus DC, alternating versus direct current, because they were sort of wanted different adoption. Nikola Tesla, who we're now pretty familiar with, initially rejected his award, but he was persuaded to accept it. People really wanted him to. He ended up doing that, and while he fell onto tough times in his later years, he sold off most of his possessions. He treasured this one up until his death. Now, I'm a little suspicious because it disappeared from his safe and it was never recovered, so maybe he did sell it along the way, but that's the official story, is that he really did treasure this metal. I think it's really cool either way. And the most recent nominee was Kenichi Iga, who's a Japanese professor, former president of Tokyo Institute of Technology, and his work on surface-emitting semiconductor lasers was important for the high-speed communications that we can benefit from today, every day. Now, in terms of the Battle of Trafalgar, just some wrapping up comments, so to speak. Admiral Nelson, so his outnumbered fleet crushed the French and the Spanish, and this would have probably, apparently Napoleon wasn't totally dead set or didn't think he could fully pull off a full conquering of mainland Britain, but this totally destroyed those ambitions, and they would hold on to that naval supremacy all the way through World War II, which was huge for the British to have that, and they had a vast trading empire and certainly had more sort of colonial influence compared to a lot of the other similar European countries that lasted much longer than those other ones. One thing about Nelson, who's commemorated on the medal, he told England expects every man to do his duty. He said that beforehand. It's put on the reverse of the medal, but it's also something he tried and carried near to his heart, because he passed away during the engagement. He was shot by a sharpshooter on the other side, and he passed away. So he said that he was sort of fulfilled and he had done his job, and it was a great win that was very unconventional because they attacked their flank. Apparently, the Franco-Spanish forces had thought of that possibility but didn't really have a contingency plan, and when he was did a very daring move, it totally folded the opposition and led to this great victory. Thought it was funny. Napoleon had a lot of control over the media back in France, so he guarded the secret for about a month, and the media falsely reports a major French victory. Of course, that's totally not true, but just an interesting little tidbit there that I did want to share. So that pretty much brings us to the end of today. I really enjoyed speaking about this main medal, and then also having the opportunity to learn more about the Battle of Trafalgar and go over some of the medal field of exonumia in general. Hopefully, it can inspire you to even just look around. Maybe there's some medals that can be very cheaply acquired that would be a really nice complement to something that is personally significant to you, and maybe that ends up being this medal itself, or maybe it's something totally different. Thank you for watching, and thanks for Goldenberry for hosting me at their shop. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated. I've also got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so you can follow me there. TreasureTownYT.com is the main channel website. Definitely give that a visit. I've got a lot of information about me up there and the channel. CoinGrabBag.com as well currently redirects there, but it's some good opportunities for very fair grab bags, both made by me and other sellers. A lot of different options, so that's a good way to support. There's also TreasureTownCoins.com. In the future, my coin dealing operation will be done out of that website. CoinMeltPrice.com for updates on the melt prices of your coins, both US and world. A lot of resources in that website. And then CoinsMetalsCards.com, being developed right now as a marketplace and news source for coins, metals, cards, and collectibles in general. So I'll see you on my future videos. Looking forward to seeing you there, and hope you have a good day.